This is the accusation. They're throwing around the word treason.
I hate to say this, but President Barack Obama is now incontrovertible evidence that he was the spearhead of a seditious conspiracy to subvert the will of the American people and overthrow the United States government back in 2016.
They're saying that Obama knew that Russia did not meddle in the election, did not have an impact.
It was 8 years that he cried racism every time you criticized him. He says, get tough. Well, what's he been? They've been firebombing stuff and rioting and marching and filibustering, setting records. He's on the beach in Hawaii licking snow cones. How much tougher can you get?
The glittering veneer of Barack Obama's legacy was just torn off by Jesse Watters and Joe Rogan. Instead of change, what's below is pure performance. From drone diplomacy to beachfront lectures on climate justice, the man who once promised change created a trail of contradictions and camera-ready remarks. This roast isn't about politics. The objective is to shut down America's most overproduced political brand. The humorous truth was presented with a sarcasm so sharp it should be noted with care. There was no cheering or teleprompting.
Glass of water? This is not a prank. He gets a glass of Flint tap water, and I swear to God, he drinks it like this.
Can I get some water? I really did need a glass of water. This is not a stunt.
Usually when something isn't a stunt, you have to say that.
It's 100%.
Have you been to Obama's presidential library? Of course not. No one has. It's in the works for 8 years, and it's only half done. But it is breaking records for the most days between leaving office and the grand opening. Nearly 3,000 days and counting. Originally, it was supposed to cost $350 million, but a couple minor setbacks, some snowy winter. Price tag is now over $800 million. The Bulls built Jordan the United Center.
If you like this video, kindly click the bell icon and subscribe to the channel. Barack Obama's legacy, like a Hollywood set, is glossy on the outside, hollow on the inside, and entirely dependent on lighting and sound to seem real. Joe Rogan smashes into it like a bull in a presidential gift shop, knocking over every piece of well-arranged memorabilia while Jesse Watters picks up the broken illusions and smirks as he puts them back. Obama has spent more time cultivating his reputation than coming up with answers, and that's reflected in every too polished, unfulfilled promise he ever makes to the cameras.
Because things are actually happening different than most of the time when people get elected.
And I will shut down the federal Department of Education, and we will move everything back to the state.
Most of the time when people get elected, they claim all these things when they're running for president, then they get into office and not much.
Individualize education and do it with the love for their children.
And in fact, a lot of what they campaigned on, they don't practice at all. Great example, the Obama administration. The Hope and Change website had to be changed because a bunch of stuff in there about whistleblowers.
No, I don't think Mr. Snowden was a patriot. I called for thorough review of our surveillance operations before Mr. Snowden made these leaks. My preference would have been for a lawful, orderly examination of these laws.
Protecting whistleblowers, which they didn't do at all.
Unexpectedly, for a guy who thrived on hope, he disseminated a lot of stuff with expiration dates. Keep your hopes up for transparency until the media starts asking pointed questions. Hope for unity before labeling half the country as rotting food. The core of his brand is his accessible genius persona. Someone who can simultaneously shoot hoops, recite policy, and drop a beat. If you look behind the charm, however, you'll discover a man who has spent 8 years delivering the political equivalent of a TED Talk. Poetic, dramatic, and completely without results.
Trying to save the party he destroyed, so he's on a manhunt. But problem, the brothers don't listen to him anymore, so he's trying to transition boys into girls. Barack's got his own rules for men, but these are the rules that made men leave the party in the first place. He says, guys don't always have to be the providers, as long as they talk.
Joe Rogan had no trouble making fun of Obama's obsession with becoming the coolest guy in the room. It was less of a presidential launch and more of a personal brand launch, with a nuclear arsenal on standby. If charisma were a policy, Obama would have been a cross between Churchill, FDR, and Lincoln. But when it came to real leadership, he was more interested in taking selfies than taking responsibility. Jesse Watters also underlined how absurd it is to pretend that a Nobel Peace Prize is anything other than a prize for getting involved too soon.
The policies and the attacks on whistleblowers and drone strikes and all the other that happened during that administration, and the coup in Russia, and like a lot that's from a foreign policy perspective that's very similar to what George was doing. But what they were doing was highlighting social justice issues that came about in his administration, largely obscured the fact that the foreign policies were very similar to what
Obama looked like an Instagram-filtered motivational speaker when he left the White House, and like a rock star when he arrived, the economy did not recover. It limped along, using media spin as a crutch. He delivered speeches that sounded like lullabies for progressives, replete with long pauses and poetic metaphors, while the rest of the country looked for ways to save their jobs and pay their medical bills. It was all show and little of substance.
Harry and Michelle took a private jet down to Australia this week. Michelle looked, what'd she have to be so sad about? Her husband's making millions in Australia. People are paying what, $900 a ticket just to talk? Now, Obama met Australia's prime minister. Look how happy they are. They didn't even need a Marine to hold the...
Unless you include drone strikes, NSA surveillance, and several executive orders, conservatives were no longer singled out by the IRS. In an instant, the gun is in ruins. Joe didn't hold back when he exposed Obama's bureaucratic behavior and reformist rhetoric. The guy then proceeded to complain and eat with the same swamp creatures he had sworn to kill after vowing to clean up Washington. Obama seems to dislike daylight when it comes to his government's records.
I was bored. Michelle's outshining him. She's a big Netflix star, best-selling author. He's a fruit juice tycoon. And he's just left starved for attention. It's the way Michelle likes it.
We had your wife Michelle on the show, and she had mentioned that for about 10 years of the marriage, she really didn't like you.
Oh, man.
So asking for a friend, how do you get back in good graces? Again, for a friend. You got a pen so I can take notes?
Let me just say this. It sure helps to be out of the White House and to have a little more time.
Press freedom, or more precisely, freedom from eavesdropping, monitoring, or prosecution. He presided over one of the worst crackdowns on whistleblowers in US history, the best plan they could devise, after years of planning and millions of dollars, had higher premiums, fewer doctors, and deductibles that required a second mortgage. The weather, Congress, and Bush were all at fault. If a bird pooped on the White House grounds, Obama probably blamed it on a GOP filibuster. Jesse said it the greatest way. Here, have a wink and a bunch of money.
During this Kamala Harris administration, it changed my opinion of that guy.
I don't understand how we got so toxic, so divided, and so bitter.
He said he wanted generals like Adolf Hitler had. Donald Trump said that.
Did you have a high opinion
for
it?
Yeah, I did just as an intelligent person, a statesman. He's probably caught up in the system. It's very difficult to make real meaningful change. You think you're going to do something and then you get into office like, oh God, what a quagmire this place is. But watching him just straight up lie.
Money. Obama's diplomatic style was like an advertisement. Even though it seems okay in low light, it malfunctions when you try to use it. Joe pointed out that, as he was making purchases on Amazon, Obama might passively authorize drone strikes while narrating a war crimes documentary. When the president hesitated, the man produced a performance art piece, and people applauded since he was in a nice suit and talked calm.
Ask Barack. Ex-presidents don't go to foreign countries to hammer other ex-presidents. Not done. And what he's saying is totally wrong. Obama turbocharged China. Under Obama, China built up their military, hacked, stole our factories, while our economy had the weakest recovery.
The globe was in a condition of simmering volatility when he was perfecting his rhythm for late-night comedy shows. Obama came back like the sequel no one had asked for, pulling strings behind the scenes while ostensibly giving wise counsel. He didn't go away, but his impact was felt in every failed policy, press release, and strategy. He paved the way for ideological landmines under the guise of legacy. It has cinematic self-worship, uplifting music, and soft lighting. Obama's strength was not leadership. It was a hallucination.
Yes. But Obama said, get out of here, Auntie. I don't want your dumb Bush. Elder Auntie got booted from the event for being too difficult. She's 78 years old. Obama didn't go all the way to Australia for a welcome. He's there for two reasons: make money and trash Trump. Bear said he had China in the palm of his hand. And once Trump took over, Xi Jinping ate lunch.
I think China feels as if it does not have to operate under the same constraints that it did.
The political environment was not altered by him. He changed its name. He updated old ideas with new words and included a Spotify playlist. Joe Rogan called it politics with a Hollywood gloss and a SoundCloud soul. The reality is starting to sink in. To put it plainly, the legacy is rotting like a container of almond milk left out in the sun. But don't worry, this roast isn't done yet. Many illusions remain to be dispelled. And when Obama talks these days, he constantly sings the same tired melody.
Give me some volume and go full screen.
What you know now, do you wish you had a term? You know what, if I could make an arrangement where I had a stand-in, a front man or front woman, and they had an earpiece in, it's in my basement in my sweats, looking through the stuff, and then I could deliver the lines, but somebody else was doing all the talking and singing, I'd be fine with that.
We know he wasn't really running the country.
Yeah.
We used to was actually running the country, and now they're like, no, he didn't even see those executive orders. That was all auto.
Meanwhile, he's securing seven-figure book deals and making movies on the art of humility. It is the most successful instance of do as I say, not as I do in modern politics.
That speech when he gave a speech on television, and everybody was like, fuck this. And then they were, it kind of just.
It was one of the most beautiful moments in modern American history. People really stood up and stopped a war from happening.
Today, I authorize the Armed Forces of the United States to begin a limited military action in Libya in support of an international effort to protect Libyan.
He now walks the political tightrope with the composure of someone who knows that the media will always cheer him on, regardless of how many times he makes a mistake, left with a sizzle reel that had undergone significant changes and a fan base that continues to believe that the background music made everything meaningful. And when the teleprompter finally shuts off, all that's left is a guy, a fiction, and an expensive echo chamber.